right. Well, welcome everyone to our virtual
We
spring
built a
20.
$49 garden hose nozzle that makes
Any hoodle. Welcome to day one of the spring 26 virtual meeting. We're going to have some presentations from our core packages in PyHC and then a discussion on AI in PyHC. And just some reminders about the upcoming FEP votes on Friday of this week. So not much else to say there. Sean, it's been a bit. Do you have any overall announcements you want to give the crowd?
Yeah, it has been a while.
Yeah.
And I'll be talking about some stuff tomorrow, but no, I don't think I have anything today. And apologies for no video here. My MacBook installed an update right as I opened the laptop. So I'm calling in for my phone here and waiting for that to reboot.
No worries. Happens. Cool. All right. Well, let's go ahead and just jump right into it. We've got our core project updates first, and SunPy, you are first on the chain to go.
Hello.
Hello, Stuart.
This should be very quick. Actually had a bit of a relatively quiet last however long it's been. I think it was last year, right? I think anyway. It was last year was the last set of slides I could find, so I'm going with that. We cut our regularly scheduled 7.1 release in December. It was a little late. And 8.0 is coming soon. I'm attempting to race the 8.0 release against the arrival of my second child. And we had NDEQ 2.4 in January, Sunkit image release in March. So just highlights of things in all of these releases, really. The main thing that was in 7.1 was the HXI map support. So this is for calibrated data from the hard X-ray imager on the Chinese ASOS satellite. Had someone contribute that. 8.0 is looking like it's sort of accidentally become a solar orbiter release for us. We've merged the SunPy SAW package, which has been developed outside of SunPy Core for a number of years, originally started by David Stansby and had lots of other people contribute to it in the meantime, has now been merged into SunPy, so that just is now out of the box, and we'll be shuttering the old one after the release. And then on top of that, we had two people come and contribute support for two other instruments on Solar Orbiter to SunPy Map. So we had the Phi and Metis instruments. I can actually make the code generate a Metis picture. So this is a Metis picture from their website. I've got to finish the Metis PR before we cut the 8.0 release, but it's close. Turns out that the most controversial part of the PR to add the Phi instrument support to SunPy was picking the colors. So had lots of discussions about the pros and cons of different color maps. The other big thing that we landed was we now have tags in our gallery. You know what? Actually, let's just do a live demo of this. So this is our gallery. We have a good number of hundreds of examples in our gallery now. But now you can filter them down by all various different things, such as instrument or things that touch on solar eclipse. Oh yeah, I should have put that in the. I'll come back to that at the end. For those of you who didn't see that, where's it gone? Here it is. So I added that feature to Sphinx Gallery, the package we use to generate the example gallery. So that's now available for anyone to use. It's all just JavaScript. NDCube 2.4. We finally landed as-diff file support in NDCube 2.4. That was something that had been open for about 18 months by the time we finally released it. And there were various other additions to NDCube for adding and subtracting against other ND data objects without WCSs. So you can now do arithmetic operations and have things like uncertainty propagate and the mask propagate and things, as long as your arrays are the same size. And in Sunkit image 0.7, we rewrote the co-alignment API. We've had co-alignment functionality in Sunkit image from the beginning of Sunkit image, because we actually extracted it from SumPy many years ago, but now it's been completely rewritten to be easier to use and also easy to extend if other people have different co-alignment API algorithms they want to contribute. It's easy to drop them into the same API. That's pretty much it on packages. So let me jump back here. The other thing we did a little while ago was, I don't know, people who, whether anyone saw this excellent image that this excellent image that the Artemis 2 crew took of the solar eclipse. We worked through this. We took this image and we fitted a coordinate frame to it, found the moon, found the center of the moon, calculated where all the planets should be, and then worked through until we got to this at the end, where you can overplot LASCO data on top of that image. Actually, the best place to show this off is probably here, isn't it? Let's do this instead. Yeah, I will drop this link in the chat for anybody who wants to have a look through it themselves. But it was a fun week to try and load pictures from Artemis into SumPy. Yeah, that's it from me.
Do we have any questions or comments for Stuart? Oh, thank you for the slide link.
And definitely just a comment that the Artemis pictures there at the end were super cool.
Yeah, that
I,
is neat.
I've been watching a bunch of videos on YouTube of like those images from Hank Green and other people, and I've heard the comment a number of times. We can't tell exactly where the sun is in this angle, but you can tell it's behind the moon, and there's exactly where it is.
It's that big to scale.
That's awesome. Pretty small, actually.
Yep, the moon was real close.
Yeah, you're close to the moon, so yeah. So I have a question. Just it's been a while since I've looked at this, so I'm assuming you haven't either. But there was one point we created some library code to go back and forth from time series in SunPy to Happy. That just like you have the two ND cubed methods, there was like a two time series method that was going to absorb Happy stuff. We had a library for that. It got to the point of, okay, it's about ready to made into a pull request. I'm not sure what happened to that. So I could take a
Yeah, I
look on
don't
our side, but I
remember
don't know
it
if you
ever
know about it.
making it to pull request.
Sorry, I talked over you.
I don't remember it making it to being a pull request.
No, I don't think it did. It was
No.
close, but um, is there still interest in that or?
I mean, yeah, I'd definitely take a look at it. I don't know.
Okay, I'll see if we can find it and dust it off, but um,
Any other comments or questions? Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Stuart. Next up, I believe we have Happy. So, John, you look ready to
okay.
go.
Can you see that?
Yes,
And does that still look good full screen?
it does.
Okay. So just going to run through some updates that we've got on Happy. Um, we aspire to be as well organized and regularized as the SunPy folks, but it's still kind of scrappy. But we are reporting, this last column is showing current number of Happy data sets. We recently learned about a few more. This is showing like last fall at Dash. Uh, then I think this was maybe the PyHC fall meeting. It actually dropped a little bit. Servers are constantly changing things. But then there's a few new um, servers that have come online. And so, and I saw Catherine on here. Madrigal is going to be coming soon. The HamSci folks are interested in putting their personal space weather station. NOAA Swipsy is using Happy internally. So we're very excited. Adoption is still increasing. This is just the numeric chart of that, kind of just for reference. I'm definitely not going to go through and read this, but these ones at the bottom are the new ones. And we're still kind of verifying this. Started looking at some of the NOAA stuff, their National Center for Environmental Information, the NCEI folks. I'll have a page on that in a second. They have like 47 different data sets there, but some of them actually didn't seem like they were quite working yet. And then this one we just learned about as well, and we're going to be contacting those people as well. So uh, they say they have Happy there, and we're kind of checking it out with them. So this is the NOAA one. We're pretty excited that NOAA started to use Happy. They have done what most people do. They already had a way they wanted to do things, and then they sort of added Happy into it. So they have this large portal that uses the Open API spec and Happy 3.2.0. And so their server has many other features. And this is not all of their data sets, but just listed out some of them. And so anyway, yeah, we're excited that they're adopting it as well. Okay, so in terms of Happy server capability, this is not a lot new here. The most common way people get started is still with the Node.js server to pass-through capability, where the the node part is handling all the Happy features for incoming and outgoing traffic, and you just write a script that streams data to the Node.js piece, and that kind of wraps it up. We have a Python server. It's still the best general purpose server, but it's not super generic yet. It still needs a lot of work. Um, so people can look at this as an example, but we're not necessarily saying, oh, you should just use this. Because most people do, like, again, what the NOAA folks did. They just incorporate it into what they already have. Ilko Doornbos at the Dutch Meteorological Institute, he's really going crazy with this stuff. He's written several Happy servers. He just wrote one this spring, reads Parquet files and runs in the cloud. So that's open source. He's about to switch to that in the next coming months. So that's kind of a new option. All right. And then in terms of Happy clients, there's not a lot new here. This is the one that people can use to explore Happy data. That's the one that's been available at our server for a while. And the timeline viewer, that's again the Dutch meteorological folks again. And there's a new version of that being developed. And that one looks pretty exciting as well. Okay, so areas where Happy is evolving. There's several things. There's so much data now that's available in Happy. So people are often asking us, well, how do I find it, right? How do I find this data set or that? So I didn't quite finish typing this. Register all of these in SPAYS. Register all of Happy datasets in SPAYS. So actually, Catherine proposed this to make a Happy to SPAYS converter, and the Happy team was already sort of working in that direction with Rebecca Ringet and others. So we're writing a Python program that will do that conversion process. And then Catherine hopefully is um, working on things on her side to have her metadata ready for that. And so uh, that's going to add a lot of content to the SPAYS world as well, because there's a lot of things that are Happy only. So suddenly you'll have a whole bunch of space records that are directly tied to all these happy data sets. And then you can actually automate. We're planning on like a nightly process, scan all the happy data sets that are out there and create space records that represent right now what is available with this happy resource. So the space team is still, that's kind of a new workflow for them. They're figuring out how to absorb that. One way thing they're definitely going to do is make it available in this new portal at Goddard, the Helio Data website. And we do have a search mechanism. I can show that at the end if I have time, but it's very rudimentary. It's basically just exposing like this SQL looking mechanism online that lets you search various uh, data set names and or server names and stuff. But it's a place to start for now, but we're working on improving the search. Okay, the next two evolutions are kind of related, so I have a bit of information about why and what it is, because so far Happy is mostly about the syntax where it's you have a request and a response and it's just telling you, hey, here's a table of numbers. These numbers have these labels and these field values. It doesn't say anything about what it is. It just tells you that, how to get to the numbers. And so what we found though is that a lot of the things people are asking us now and what users are doing with Happy means that it would be nice to have a little bit more than just the syntax to start talking about the semantics. What is this data set or how does this data set relate to that one? For example, the KNMI folks again, they already advertise linkages between data sets related by cadence so that their client automatically switches to a longer cadence data set if you're zooming out in time. You don't need the 1 second data if you're looking at 5 months. So, um, and with more and more happy data becoming available, the search capabilities return, now long lists. Well, here I found all these things. It's like, well, what are these? How do they relate? So that's a big driver for us. And there's some data sets exist in multiple places. So how do these different ones relate? It would be nice to be able to express that in a machine readable way. Or they may just have different names. Oh, this is the same name as that. That's the Omni data set. They have it here. They also have it there. Are those really the same? So plus just provenance, where did this data set come from? This is a calibrated version of what? Where's the raw source? So that's a kind of provenance concern. So these are the overarching drivers behind what we're doing next, which is adding a couple of new features. Again, it's adding on top, so it's all going to be backwards compatible, but ways to express both linkages between data sets and then schemas for a data set. And just as a side note, yeah, there are some working groups in the idea realm dealing with semantics. And so we're going to be leveraging what that group is doing so that we don't invent our own terms for all these things. So the linkages between data sets, that's another evolution. So we're going to add another endpoint to talk about the relationships between data sets, and it'll be able to express these kind of cadence relationships. Data set A is alternate cadence of data set B. This is a notional expression. We're actually using various existing ontology languages, and we may have a JSON LD expression for it. Um, so the connection here doesn't tell you what the different cadences are. You still have to go look at the data sets to find out what the cadence is. But then this can at least tell you that there is a connection. Or here's another example. A data set is a copy of another one. And so, yeah, we've got a standard ontology language we're using, and we're working with Baptiste and his folks on some of that because they've already done some work there. And then there will be another API where you can find uh, you can explore the different connections between the data sets. Okay, the other thing that we want to do is and I'm pretty excited about this one, is create schemas for happy results. So we'll add something to the happy info response. Right now, I think it'll just be a keyword called dataset schema. And then you can set that to certain things that we define within the happy spec or almost like adjacent to it. This happy data set, the data set schema is for a file listing or for an event list or good time intervals or for magnetometer data. And then that keyword will require you to meet certain criteria for your happy data set. So if you, for the one that's easiest for us to start with is just a file listing, because those are all over the place. And then for a file listing, you have to list a start date and a URI, and that's it. Those are required. You can optionally list modification date, size, and those are kind of recommended. But all these other ones, the non-red ones, are optional. And then beyond this, you could list anything you want. So you have to have these two. You can have any of these and then plus anything else you want. And that way, anybody could interpret this as a file listing with a start date and a URI. So you could list solar images here and add a whole bunch of other features like wavelength and cadence and different things. And then your list of images, it's a file listing, but then you could have some solar specific stuff on top of that. So it is a solar file listing where you've added even other things there. So, but this is still in process. We haven't released this yet. And if you have any comments on this too, like, oh, why don't you include such and such, then please let us know because like I say, we're still forming it. Okay, and then just a quick comment on this. Um, there's just one more slide after this, but we are trying to think about ways to support agentic coding and AI usage for Happy. Happy's out there. It's a well-written spec, lots of examples. So I have already heard of students telling me, oh, well, I just got AI to I had to update the figures in my paper, so I needed code to access this, and I asked AI to write me a happy access mechanism for it. So people are already trying that, and it'd be great if we could support that. Or making like an MCP server for happy coding, or like you can develop custom GPTs for happy development. So definitely interested in what the PyHC chat and what Sean has to say about how this is going here, and we could try to connect with that. Lastly, outreach. We're reaching out to new server groups as they pop up. Of course, Madrigal, the HamSci folks, NOAA. There's this Belgian group with the new site. A lot of you know already, we're planning a presence at the GEM 2026 meeting with a whole bunch of different folks, including PyHC, to talk about capabilities that we have and bring it to the GEM community. And if that goes well, we'll bring it to other meetings. Definitely open to discussion on that. But the students were very excited about this. They gave us like a whole hour so in their session, in their day. So then there's an expanded idea data access working group. It kind of was happy only and wasn't really functioning as an idea working group, but with, Jonathan Cook and Jack Ireland and myself we're trying to revitalize it. And so we'll have a survey out soon. And then I already mentioned the Happy to Space converter and collaborating with Madrigal on that. Okay, yep, that's it.
Thank you, John. Do we have any comments or questions? I see Sean, you already undid your video. That's great.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question. I think it was evolution number 2 about the relationships that you were adding there. Did you say
Yeah.
that that's something that is out already and it's just not 100% done yet, or is that still being worked on?
This turned out to be like just a can of worms. I mean, because it relates to the next one we're doing with the schemas. Like, do we have to say it is a file listing? And oh, well, we haven't really defined that yet. So how do we just say it? So, and then there were already some constraints, like the KNMI folks were already doing this. So we were trying to do this in a way that would support active use cases. Because if you don't do that, that seems kind of pointless to break something that somebody's already found to be effective. Plus, all this semantic stuff is fairly new to us. So no, it's not quite there yet. We have a mechanism that's producing these relationships, and we're testing it out with the Dutch group because they're sort of the front runners. So if they like it, if it works with them, if they're able to adapt it and leverage it in place of what they were doing before, then we're going to roll it out more broadly.
Well, neat. Thank you.
Any other thoughts or comments? I'd definitely be curious to hear more on that agentic an AI slide in the future. I don't know if you have much more to say than what you have there on it now, but it's just cool to hear that you're experimenting with that.
Yeah, I tried this. Yeah, I can talk about it later. But yeah.
Yeah, cool, cool. All right. Well, thank you, John. Let's see. Next up, we have Plasma Pi. So, Nick, you're on deck.
Awesome. And I'll post some links in the chat that will eventually become useful and attempt to share. Showing up.
Yes.
Awesome. Met the minimum baseline for success. So always happy when that works. So yeah, I'm going to give the update for Plasma Pi, and I will be focusing a lot on infrastructure improvements due to the current funding source for uh, the project. And this is on behalf of a whole bunch of people. So thank you, everyone. So to give an update on the overall status, we released version 2026.2.0 a few months ago, and we're expecting to do another one maybe next month or so. Possibly before a tutorial that we're giving, but possibly after. One big note is that the NSF Cyber Infrastructure Award ended last September, and we did end up submitting a follow-up proposal, NSF CSSI Award, uh, which was due the Monday after Thanksgiving again. And we should hear back sometime within the next few megaseconds, but who knows? Maybe by the end of July, we shall see. So the maintenance work now is supported by a NASA HDEE award. And also, we ended up putting the scientific content of the proposals, we uploaded them to Zenodo so they can be a resource for anyone who wants to like take a look at what an HDE award looks like or get an idea for what to put into an NSF cyber infrastructure for sustained scientific innovation proposal. That's what CSSI stands for. So, and if you want to get a good idea of like the Plasma Pi dream roadmap, that's up there too. All right, so the main tasks for the HDE award are to do things like improve package infrastructure, maintain the continuous integration setup, also the documentation infrastructure and things like that, coordinate project activities, so lots of fortnightly meetings. Then also do things like provide user and contributor support, and we also have a tutorial coming up in a few weeks. So given the current funding uncertainty, well, a lot of what I've been doing has been trying to prepare for either my departure from the project or a massive 5-year ramp up for the project. And there are a couple of things where that overlaps. And one way is to improve the documentation for the infrastructure. And in particular, trying to do that locally. So for a lot of the infrastructure files, I've been going through and adding a top level doc string to them. So having a short description of what manifest.in is, or what the pre-commit configuration file is, and like a little bit of helpful information on how to run things and things like that. So often these are pretty short and usually, or often they will point to documentation for the actual thing. And the goal is to make it so that if someone comes along to the project, that they'll have a way to like just go through file by file and see, oh, this is what this does. Or this is where I can go to get information about that. So this is a way to prepare for any situation where other people will be involved with the project. I've also been adding readme.md files to directories. And if you go to if you click on a directory in GitHub and then like scroll to the bottom, it'll show the contents of a README file for like whatever directory you have. And so we can take advantage of that and put in a little bit of helpful information. So our type stubs directory We have some information about like what it is, and also you can see a place where um, I forgot to do an update that'll come up later. This should be TY now. And so like people can go to the directory and see, oh, this is what this directory is for. These are what the files are that are in it. The downside is that uh, it is a little bit of an increased maintenance cost, but if you try to make the documentation timeless, like this documentation shouldn't need to change much unless you change the static type checker, then that can help. And then I was foreshadowing for this earlier. We have been making some improvements to our static type checking. We added MyPy as a static type checker back in 2023, and this was the original, um, the standard essentially type checker for Python to check type annotations. And MyPy overall has been helpful but slow, and I found it also kind of annoying to configure, especially if you want to like do typing incrementally. And the error messages are kind of mid. They're okay, but they take some reading and take some time to like kind of understand what is going on there. Uh, we just switched to TY, which is a new static type checker from Astral, Astral being the makers of Rough and UV. And they have a TY, the static type checker, that is, I think, in beta right now. It's still fairly early, but it is in quite good shape. And it is actively being developed, which is a good sign. TY has excellent performance, and Astral spends a lot of time making sure that they have helpful documentation for the error messages. So the error messages themselves are helpful, and then they have a web page for each of the errors that goes through an example of what the error was and how to fix it. A nice thing about TY is that it plays well with integrated development environments, including the language server protocol. So adding type hints when working in an IDE, that ends up being easier, though this is something that I have not played with much at all yet. I'm looking forward to it. TY also is a great static type checker to start with because you can do in one command, it's like TY check and then add ignore, which will go through and take every existing error and add a comment to ignore that error. So if you want to add type annotations gradually, this is a great way to do it because you can um, go through gradually and over time improve the type annotation coverage. And yeah, so it's great for incrementally adding type annotations. So I do recommend starting with this. It is still a little bit on the early side, so things can change a bit. And there are some features that would be helpful to add, but I have high hopes for it in the future. And if you want to add it for any of your projects, I'm happy to chat about this, and a link to set up schedule a meeting with me, I put in the chat. So we also have been working on some package security improvements, started by establishing a security policy last year. One quick thing is to do dependency cooldowns for continuous integration. So it turns out that most security vulnerabilities are found within a few days to a week after the release of a package, a dependency update. So UV and now pip have ways to say, let's wait a few days or a week before updating this package. And you can also do that for Dependabot also. This is a really quick way to make a somewhat minor improvement to security, but still worth doing. Right. And we've also added a Zizmore CI check, awesome name for a project, that goes through GitHub workflows and checks for a lot of security vulnerabilities. And We had a bunch. So this is a good thing to add because it'll help say, oh, we want to set the permissions, um, or we want to give this workflow a lot fewer permissions because it doesn't need them. And it opens up the attack surface. So another thing. And we also went through the organization and audited permissions. So it's helpful for um, members of a project and also like continuous integration tools to have exactly the minimum permissions that they need to fulfill their responsibilities. It's like the principle of least something. I forgot what it was called. Um, but it does help. And so there are a few things that we want to do: set up trusted publishing for PyPI, and then enacted AI policy, which we probably will not write with AI. We've also been doing some community engagement activities. Um, I didn't go, but one of my co-conspirators, David Schaffner, set up a Plasma Pi booth at the fall meeting. One of us has done that for the last 4 years or so, 3 or 4 years. And a few students at Bryn Mawr College are going to be working on projects probably related to Plasma Pi. And so I'm going to be visiting there in June. This is with the collaborator I mentioned, David Schaffner. And we're going to be doing a tutorial over the World Wide Web, more colloquially known as the Information Superhighway, uh, at a summer intro course for plasma and fusion, which is intended for student interns. And this is something we've done for I don't know how many years, probably like 5 or so at this point. So with a couple things in the CSSI proposal, we're going to improve the diagnostic functionality for plasma. And this includes things like magnetized plasmas and then high energy density physics. So not too related to solar physics, although a lot of light plasma experiments are. And then improve things for PyHC interoperability, things like classes for distribution functions, non-equilibrium ionization modeling. That's probably would be a collaboration with Will Barnes and Fiasco, which I'd be excited to do. And then some space plasma data analysis and so on. You can see the proposal itself, which I put a link to in the chat for details. Then one big thing in the proposal is to improve the laboratory plasma science data environment. So if the proposal goes through, I'm probably going to be asking a bunch of you for a lot of help because it really needs it. And a lot of it is in many ways starting from scratch. So it's kind of like a greenfield project, which is there are good things and bad things about it. So we'll see how that goes. And we also have a partnership with a student-led group, Computational Research Access Network, which does a spring course teaching computational physics to mostly undergraduates who don't have access to a computational physics course at their institution. So it's a really awesome project. I'll link to that and it's in the chat also. And then we put in funding for a bunch of year-long post-baccalaureate, post-undergraduate opportunities. All right. And then we're also doing a side quest, which is plasma advocacy, and in particular, trying to get astronomers from saying interstellar gas about everything to say interstellar plasma because it's all in plasma state. So my roommate did a poll, and I asked my roommate which has more Riz, interstellar gas or interstellar plasma. So he ended up like doing a Discord poll, and lo and behold, interstellar plasma is the more popular one. Anyway, that's it.
So thank you, Nick. Do we have any comments or questions? Cool.
Also, Riz is short for charisma, and I learned the meaning of that at a plasma physics talk. So on public engagement.
I'm glad for your extracurricular learning opportunity.
Yeah. Hey, back on one of the first slides, you had mentioned something about a Plasma Pi dream map. Was that included in the list of links somewhere? It was right when you had started talking about starting up the new proposal. You mentioned something about a dream map.
Did I?
Thought you
I
did.
probably meant roadmap.
Probably meant
And
roadmap. Yeah.
uh, one thing which we would like to do is to do a community road mapping exercise, which we meant to do in the last project, but it was a little bit daunting. Um, but yeah, like figuring out what the plasma community needs would be a big thing.
Gotcha. Well, we've all got our fingers crossed that the new proposal goes well, because yeah, it's a
Thanks.
rough place to be both preparing to either massively ramp up or leave a project. Eesh.
In all honesty, I'll probably stick around, at least at some level for whatever reason. Or you're all really fun, so
Appreciate that vote of confidence. Goodness. Any other comments or questions other than Nick, you're awesome. All right. Well, thank you for that presentation. And yeah, same as Sean's sentiments, hoping for the best out of that CSSI proposal. Keep us posted. All right. Next up, we have a PySpeedos update. So Jim, take it away.
Good morning. Let me start sharing my screen here. Mm-mm. Okay, hope y'all can see that. Let's
Yes.
see. All right. So, yeah, I'll give a few updates on what's been going on with PySpeedas the past 6 months or so. Um, so we're at version 2.1.1 currently. That was released, I don't know, about a week ago. Um, and we seem to be on a cadence these days of maybe every 3 to 6 weeks, we'll put out a new release with a few little features added. And as always, our documentation is sort of continuously updated at pyspeedas.readthedocs.io. And so what's new? We're always adding data sets here and there to our complement of load routines. And a lot of these developments actually come from PySpeedas users. They just hear through the grapevine that there's a new data set available here or there that's not supported yet by PySpeedas. And a lot of times they'll just go ahead and put together a pull request and submit it. And we're very happy to receive those updates. Um, a couple of major ones we've added recently. I guess last year, the POES polar weather satellites were decommissioned, and that was a useful source of space weather data. They had some particle sensors and I think X-ray sensors on them. And so it turns out there are these other satellites that are still operating called METOP, again, weather satellites that have a very similar instrument package on them. So we've added support for loading those. Those data sets are located at NOAA at their NCEI, and those are now available. Um, and then we've also been working to add a bunch of USGS maintains, I guess they're sort of co-located with seismograph sites. And they have these ground variometer stations. And a variometer is like a ground magnetometer, but it's not calibrated that well for absolute field values. These are more useful for picking up changes, which a lot of times that's all you really want anyway. Um, so yeah, they're good for short-term time variation, but they are subject to disturbances. Like as they move equipment around, it could affect the local magnetic fields and orientation and so forth. And they have a couple of different cadences available. What we've been doing at the Space Sciences Lab is once we found out about these, These are stored in a service called uh, Iris or also Earthscope. I'm not sure what the relationship is there, but they have some web forms where you can request data. And what we've been doing is going through and we have some cron jobs to ingest their data, pull it in from their web forms, and then we republish it in CDF format, and then make it available to load in PySpeedas and ideal speedas. Um, so that gives a lot of widespread geographic coverage, like basically the whole continental US. Um, and so that's new. That's available now. And then one of our users has done a lot of good work making some more cluster data sets available. These are things that uh, SPDF has been gradually increasing their holdings of cluster data. They've been uh, over the past year or so, they've been ingesting a lot of it from the Cluster Science Archive, and so uh, they have a lot of new data sets available via SPDF that were not supported in the PySpeed load routines. So one of our users developed not only some load routines for that data, but this is 3D calibrated particle data from cluster. And she actually contributed some additional code to like the wrappers you would need to adapt these specific data sets to our general purpose particle routines to do things like um, plasma moments or like 2D slices from 3D particle distributions. So that was a lot of work. We were very, very happy to get that. Increases our number of sources of good particle data and being able to visualize it. So we're very appreciative of her and our other contributors for doing that work for us. Um, and then a few things that I've been saying forever. We hope to get this out soon, and we've managed to deploy a couple of them. And the two things I'm going to mention, both of these were kind of driven by the results of the last PyHC summer school we had. Um, so these topics that they're very useful things to be able to do, like these sort of time series plots. And it was possible to do them with raw matplotlib calls, but it made it very difficult to teach and to understand. And that was just a sign that we need to encapsulate this better and give some higher level tools for it. So, so the plots we've introduced give you the ability to do orbit plots, which is an important thing. And then oftentimes you'll want to plot other things on top of the orbits, like neutral sheet locations or bow shock or magnetopause boundaries or field line plots. And so now we have a common interface that lets you do all that easily. Um, and I'll just show, so this is an excerpt from one of the notebooks from the summer school. And you can see this is a whole page of code here just to set up the matplotlib figures. And we haven't even plotted any actual data yet. And then to actually do the plotting, it's kind of complicated because you have to pull the data out of the tplot variables, and then you have to sort of project it yourself, figure out like, oh, the XY plane, you're plotting, element 0 versus element 1, or 0, 2 for the XZ axis, or one, you know, again, there's nothing particularly complicated about it, but there's just a lot of bookkeeping stuff you have to keep track of to do this cleanly. So now what we have are some routines that look like this. So this one is tplot XY3, and this gives you sort of all three planes that you might want to project things onto. And in this series of calls, we do one call to plot some Themis orbits. You can see we can take a wild card here, so we can plot all 5 Themis orbits that have previously been loaded and do that in one call to this plot routine, and then specify some other uh, characteristics of the plot. And then we have another routine that'll add anything that looks like a magnetopause boundary. And it'll put that on two of those planes, the ones that are important for that sort of display. So in this one, we're displaying a bow shock that we've previously calculated, and then also a magnetopause boundary that was previously generated. And then finally, a neutral sheet, and that's a little bit different of a display because that really only makes sense to plot on one of the planes. Um, so, uh, so instead of pages and pages of raw matplotlib stuff, we just do one call for the orbits, a couple of calls for the magnetopause and bow shock, one more for the neutral sheet, and then this is what you end up with. So. You know, this top panel, this is sort of the view from the top down, from the ecliptic north. This one is sort of from the side with the sun to the left. And then this third panel over here is you're basically looking out from the sun at the Earth. And then all the scaling and colors and uh, making the legends and titles. That's all taken care of for you. So that is way easier, way more convenient to the users than the previous capabilities we had. Um, and then the other major set of improvements we've done is a much cleaner interface to the GeoPack field models. And again, that was something that ended up being very difficult to teach, and there were a lot of steps and a lot of sort of fussy stuff that you had to do to make the data ready for the field models. So you had to sort of load your own solar wind data or magnetospheric properties from, say, OmniWeb. You had to do your own data sanitization to make sure there's no nans lurking in your data, make sure everything's interpolated onto a common time base. Whereas now, by default, if you don't pass the model parameters, it knows internally how to go out and get them from Omni and you know filter out nans and do whatever interpolation you need to do to get everything onto a common time base. Um, and we also, in the process of doing that, our testing revealed that there was a bug in the external GeoPack package, which is a pure Python implementation of of some of the Sigonenko field models. We actually found a bug in that package and contributed a fix upstream, and they were kind enough to put out a new release with that fix in it. So in addition to this sort of just field model access improvements, we finally now implemented a reliable field line tracing routine that sort of does whatever calls to the models it needs to do to sort of move step along the field line and keep track of the point you hit on that trace. And you could trace either to the ionosphere, which is a user-defined radius from the Earth's center, or you could trace to the magnetic equator, and that's the point where the radial component changes from outward to inward. And for that, we're using the SciPy Runge-Kutta 4 fifth order ODE solver. And again, in the course of testing that against, say, the IDL speedass results, we found out that the tracer in the IDL GeoPack library had some pretty serious problems. So we would probably recommend this now over the IDL version until we can get those problems fixed in the library. So I'll show you a few sample plots. Let's see. So this is what it looks like to trace field lines. And you can see the calls are very simple. I've previously generated just some starting points to use. And what we did is like a circle of points in the XC plane at 5 Earth radii. And then we're telling it to trace with the T89 model to the south ionosphere. And then we'll return t-plot variables with one with the foot points where the trace ended, and then another one for the actual points of each trace. And then the second call does the same thing, but traces to the equator instead of the ionosphere and saves those outputs. And then the nice thing of we sort of needed the field, the 3D plotting routines that I previously mentioned in order to have a chance at diagnosing this, debugging it, making this all work smoothly. So I'll show you the results of that. This is the trace to the south ionosphere, so you can see where the start points are, and that gives you a very nice representation. I think what I did here is sort of every 5 degrees around that circle, we plotted a trace, and then this is the instead the trace to the magnetic equator. And then, so those are both plotting the field line traces themselves. And then we can use the same plotting tools. This is actually a different trace generated, I think, from a Themis full orbit. And what we've done here is a trace to the south ionosphere. And then we could plot where the foot points of that trace land on the Earth's surface or on the ionosphere. And this kind of plot is good for like if you're interested in magnetic conjunctions between a probe and say a ground imager station or a ground magnetometer station. You could see where the spacecraft was magnetically connected at any given time and give you an idea which ground stations you might want to look at for that time interval. And then coming up in the future, a few developments we want to work on. Right now, we don't really have any way to set persistent user preferences in PySpeedas. So a lot of our data sets have multiple data providers who can serve them. So a lot of times what our users sometimes want to do is like somebody at UCLA, for example, might want to use the UCLA mirror of the Themis data set, or somebody on the East Coast might prefer to use the SPDF collection, or somebody at Berkeley might want to use the Berkeley data provider. And so right now, if you wanted to change it, you'd have to go into the Python code and change like one of the config.py files. And then there are other things that people would probably like to do, like have persistent matplotlib style preferences, or like set up. Maybe they want all their plots or diagnostic outputs to go to a specific place. So we want to give people a way to do that. We'll probably do like a PySpeedas preferences.toml file in a standard place and let people edit that on their own. And then that also sort of plays into some of the cloud awareness capability that's already there. But again, to take advantage of that, you'd have to edit the configuration files directly to pull data from say from an S3 bucket instead of SPDF or MMS data center. So that sort of depends on being able to have user settable preferences and probably some integration with the Cloud Catalog package would be a good idea there as well. And so what I'm talking about are things like this. This is, I think, the Themis config.py file. And you can see that we have multiple options here for the remote data directory. And so instead of editing the PySpeedas code to select that, that should be like sort of in the user's domain to configure how they want. And then other things coming up down the line. There's still a little bit of work to do with the GeoPack interface and the field modeling. We have a few models that are not yet available that we would like to be able to use. And that is probably going to take some Fortran to Python translation to get those into the pure Python GeoPack library. And then some of the models, we don't, they take some parameters which are sort of generated from like solar wind densities and speeds and directions. And the, we don't have good ways to calculate those sort of intermediate parameters. So that's definitely something we want to implement. And then for Themis, we have not yet been able to generate the usual set of particle data wrappers for doing moments and 2D slices and stuff, because that requires calibrated 3D particle data. So for Themis, we had not provided those as separate data products. We sort of expected people to use IDL speed as to calibrate them on the fly and then do their particle stuff. But that sort of left the PySpeed users out in the cold. So rather than try to port all that calibration code to Python, I mean, we do want to do that eventually, but uh, we just made calibrated particle products for the ESA instrument. And the other particle instrument, SST, will be coming over the next few months. And so we'd like to implement those particle tool wrappers to be able to do the same sort of things we could do with cluster or MMS data with the Themis data set. Uh, and that's all I got. Thanks, everybody.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jim. Lots of updates on the PySpeedos front. You do have a couple questions in the chat from John. John, did you want to pipe up with those?
Yeah, sure. Just one of them is like, oh, that variometer data sounds interesting. That's another group where we're always looking for people who, if they want to try Happy, we could suggest it. So I may just email you about that, where you found that data. And then the cloud catalog, is that
The services, it's either, I forget which is like the main endpoint. It's either Earth Scope or Iris. Iris might be the service that you connect to pull
okay?
data. But yeah, we can send you the like the provenance of where that data is coming from.
Yeah, yeah, that would be useful because presumably you are able to find like actually where the useful stuff is. Sometimes it takes a while to drill down into people's
Mhm.
sites and find that, as you are well aware.
Yeah.
And the cloud catalog you mentioned, that's the one that HelioCloud is using to do file listings and stuff. Is that
I think so.
okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think is that Sandy's
Andy
estimate to
Antunes.
use?
Yeah, yeah. So he made that happy like. It's not strictly happy, but we were thinking of wrapping that with happy and then making it one of our first examples of the whole file listing um, semantic mechanism that we talked about. So would that be useful? You already have access for happy stuff in there. So this is partly why it we didn't do this at the beginning because just getting a file listing with happy, you really end up having to write different code if you're really doing a file listing. It doesn't have anything to do with data. So but if you already have the mechanisms for happy request and response, there's at least that part you wouldn't have to redo. But anyway, what do you think of that?
Um, I haven't played with it enough yet to have
Okay.
a really an opinion on that. So like with this with the gem coming up, we've been talking about getting our stuff into the Helio Cloud environment to demo it there. And so we haven't really battle tested the cloud awareness stuff. Like we've tested it by mocking like S3 URLs, which are just backed by actual data files. But I really want to put some time into playing with it in Helio Cloud and seeing
Yeah,
what it
okay.
takes to like switch from pulling, like say, Themis data pulling it from the cloud instead rather than the data servers we already have set up. So I'm
Okay, yeah, the
thinking,
Helio Cloud.
internally, this would be something, maybe not necessarily that the users would see, but if you sort of switch to cloud mode, then like internally in the Themis plugin, like you would sort of know which data sets you have available, and then maybe call out the cloud catalog to get the actual S3 URLs for it and move forward that way. I think that's how it might work, but that we're very early in stages in supporting that. So
Yeah.
we'll just have to see how it goes.
Okay. And the Helio Cloud team has some time and availability to help with
Mhm.
your questions that you into. And there was an effort funded, I think, out of a NASA Roses a year or so ago to make some of the libraries more cloud aware on reading stuff, like adding S3 read routines into some of the low level libraries like CDF and some others. So are
Mhm.
you're familiar with that? You're leveraging that?
Yeah, so we're leveraging CDF lib has now built-in capability to do S3 reads. Um, there's a variant of the NetCDF4 library that has that built in, but not the standard
Oh, weird. Okay.
NetCDF4. Um, so we're not sure about that. What we would love to do is like have a standard sort of across file formats and get them all to agree on something like, oh, we'll have an interface where you just pass a file handle to something that's already opened instead of a file name. And then that file handle, it could be just a regular plain file, or it could be to an S3 file handler sort of transparently. But it might be tricky to get everybody to coordinate on that. That's a challenge.
Okay. Yeah, there was a Python library for something like this at one point that did file
Um,
readings from different sources. I forget the name of it. I didn't have a chance to do a quick search. But anyway, if I find that, I'll put it in the chat.
mhm.
Um, any final questions or comments for Jim?
Yeah, maybe at
Oh,
Gem we can talk about the at the Gem meeting we can talk about the cloud catalog and
Yeah.
Helio Cloud
Yeah,
and
maybe we
stuff.
can have a little hack session and
Yeah, yeah. Eric Winter will be there, I think, and so uh some other Helio Cloud folks.
yeah. Just really quickly, I wanted to say I thought the new plotting features that you showed off were cool. It's nice to see PyC plot getting new features added now that it's been rolled into uh, PySpeed S. And I was wondering, Jim, what are your thoughts about maybe I'm considering whether or not we should remove PyTplot as a standalone PyHC package, like from our website now that it's been subsumed.
yeah, I think so because that um I think I don't want to say defunct because the Maven team might still be using it internally, and they might be using like the original version of it, not the one that PySpeedass was using. Uh, so yeah, as you may recall from like getting the dependencies sorted out, there was PyTplot, which we didn't use. That caused a lot of confusion. And then there's PyTplot MPL temp, whatever we called
Yeah.
it. That was the one that PySpeedas was using. So the second one, for sure, we could take that out of PyHC. That's now absorbed into PySpeedas. But the OG PyTplot, it might still be worth keeping around.
Yeah, interesting. All right.
But
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know if that's being actively developed still. I think it might have been, a couple of years since anything was updated
yeah,
on.
it has been. But
Yeah, maybe we should reach out to Brian Harder and get his
Yeah.
thoughts on that.
yeah. Okay, cool. Anyway, thank you.
Awesome. Yes, thanks again, Jim. And last but not least, we have a PySat update. Jonathan.
Hi, how's it going? Let
Good.
me pull this up. Is that showing?
It sure is.
All right. Not much to say. We've been down a developer for a little while. Jeff Cleansing hasn't been involved since our last meeting. He should be getting back on it sometime later this year. And development's been pretty glacial between being down a developer and just a general lack of dedicated funding for PySat. But we're still using it. People are still using it. So we are still keeping it updated. Right now, we have sort of a batch of stable releases that have been the same for quite a while. Some for 2 years with no updates, but they're still running. The really only development we're doing right now is maintenance development, which I'll just sort of pop over here. We're just getting everything migrated over to Python 3.14, making sure everything still runs with that. Because a lot of our projects are, moving to the newer versions of Python. And we're just sort of keeping everything running, keeping the lights on. But until we get a little bit more dedicated support for this, which hopefully will happen next year, we are just, keeping things running sort of in safe mode, making sure the packages work and aren't breaking all the time. So there's the sort of order. We'll probably start with PySat. It's like the base. Once the core PySat package is updated, then we'll go through these library packages and sort of run them through their paces. But that's really all we have right now. Nothing great to show. Just we are still keeping things going, and we hope to have a lot more to show at the next PyHC. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a story for a lot of people, I'm sure, right now, waiting on funding and things of that sort.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any planned time for when you're going to be making a next PySat release, like on PyPI?
I don't think we have a timeline on the next release.
Not a timeline. Okay. Because I know that you guys have like merged in new features and bug fixes and stuff like that that are in the main branch, but that's not
Yeah,
be published soon.
I can't say whether or not it'll be published soon. Um, right now, the development branch is needs a lot of work before we can create a release candidate and get that into a new version.
Yeah, I
Um,
gotcha.
I would say probably, end of summer at the earliest before we get a new version up of PySat.
Cool. Well, thank you and good luck.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or comments for Jonathan and PySat in general? All right. Cool. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on and showing what you could. And yeah, hoping that Jeff Clinton can get back with y'all soon. All right. So this next part of the agenda, now that we've wrapped up with all the core project updates, is meant to be discussion based. I have a few slides just to kind of start off, guide the discussion, but I'm really looking kind of for feedback and y'all's thoughts, not on the PyHC leadership side of things. So let me go ahead and find Zoom again and then share my screen. All right, so you should see a slide deck here. Is that correct? I have lost my Zoom window.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks fine.
Okay, beautiful. And of course, I have this pop-up box from Zoom. Okay, cool. Anyhoodle. All right. So specifically for this discussion, we're looking at the use of AI in our package submission reviews, just kind of checking in. As the little blurb says, we've tested out this framework for a bit now. Sean's been using it to help aid and speed up reviews of packages submitted to PyHC. So let's talk about, what we think is working, what might not be, where we go from there. All right, so how it's been leveraged so far in our review process, just some example pretty images for like checking all of our standards. It's there to kind of comb through the repo and do it a lot faster than Sean could do all on his lonesome. Some packages are particularly extensive, and that would take a really long time to do just kind of by hand, if you will. And it will give Sean then a kind of pre-review summary to look at in order to make a judgment on, how well this package is or is adhering to standards. Does it match with what the package submitter thought for their own package and so forth? Though, of course, it's not the final say in accepting or rejecting decisions on a package. It's a supplemental tool that Sean's been using to kind of help speed the process up. So it still remains the reviewer, i.e., for all intents and purposes, Sean's call so far. So obviously, what's been working well, that speeds things up a whole lot when it comes to reviews. Sean doesn't have to go through and look through every single file and, compare it to our standards and make sure it's all up to snuff and so forth. It likely catches a lot more issues that might have been missed if Sean just had to go and do this all on his own. And it provides really detailed and specific feedback that Sean can then use to go back to people who have submitted packages and say, hey, the AI tool caught this that you're missing, or, you might want to think about improving this file in your package and so forth. Where there might still be friction with this process, AI is AI. It's not always 100% accurate. So there might be things that are flagged incorrectly, leading to some back and forth between Sean and the person submitting packages. AI doesn't know PyHC on a human to human level. Maybe it's overly harsh or just doesn't categorize something right. There's always the possibility of an over reliance on AI, rubber stamping output, missing issues with AI review. Although up until now, I would say that that's been pretty well caught, just conversations between Sean and those submitting packages. But the main reason we're here today is that we don't have an official note on it of community buy-in. We've just kind of test run this and just gone with it. And we assume, no squeaky wheels means things are working well, but may as well try to actually be official about it and have this kind of session where we can have people talk about it. So as far as our contributor guidelines goes, aka the adding to PyHC project list markdown file that we have, that anyone coming to submit a package goes and looks through and then starts that whole process. The way it looks right now, you basically just self-evaluate your own project against the PyHC standards, fork the website repo, add your project into that, including the name, link to your code, your contact, and whatever grades you think is appropriate for your package at this time. And then you put up a pull request for that. And Sean is the one to go and then review it. And if you want, during the process or after when it's been accepted, of course, you can post in our Slack group or whatnot, or get on our telecon and talk with us about it. So within that whole process, we've never mentioned the use of AI, as these contributor guidelines were written in, well, not even 2020. I think it might have been shortly before 2020. If you see to the right side of the screen, the contributor guidelines still reference our spring 2020 meeting as a future date. So obviously these haven't been touched in a little because the basic process itself hasn't changed. But in addition, we don't mention AI involvement in the whole review process. We only mention a single reviewer with no specific mention of who this is, as I think Sean wasn't even a part of the project yet at that point. Of course, the whole single reviewer process for packages in the future under PEP 4 changes because it's supposed to be a team reviewing that anyway. In any case, I digress. So basically a few paths forward for how we might want to handle this. There's the continue as is path, and that works. It's the least, easiest path. It's the path of least resistance, if you will. That being said, if we don't even kind of update this contributor guide, it leaves this idea of community buy-in unaddressed, just assumes everyone's hunky-dory with everything we've been doing, as well as, kind of a naturally then assuming whenever we do our reorganization of PyHC packages with FET4 to get those different tiering levels, if we use AI, it's assuming without, updating our contributor guidelines that everyone's kind of okay with that. And of course, we still need to later update the contributor guide with FET4 considerations anyway. The next path is just kind of continue as we've been doing, but go ahead right now and refine the contributor guide. Add in our thoughts about what the community is comfortable with as far as AI usage goes with our review process. If most everyone's pretty fine with what we've been doing, great, that's easy. We just add a line that we use AI as a supplemental tool. If not, I'd love to discuss that here and now. And then there's kind of the more, I don't want to say nuclear, that's the wrong word, but path that will take things more formal, if you will, and that's to kind of FEPify the contributor guide in the same way that we've been doing for the standards, as well as including within that FEP our idea of using AI reviews. That would work because it gives super clear direction of what the community wants and expects out of packages submitting to the community. Of course, then that does add on the effort for someone to draft this new FEP, which by nature just takes time to write and also takes time to pass with those 2-vote requirements. It might kind of, delay that FEP4 adoption just in how we're handling or not handling reviews of all these packages with AI. It would make it harder to update the guide in the future just because you'd have to write a new FEP to update the guide, and so forth. So yeah, that kind of wraps up my scene setting presentation. Now I turn it back to y'all and I'll minimize my screen in a minute so I can see faces again. But basically, the whole point of this is I, as the PyHC lead, and Sean as the PyHC tech lead, we just want to hear from everyone, skeptics and enthusiasts of AI alike, what your thoughts on this has been. If you've been involved in one of our reviews recently, where AI was used to review a package, kind of what has your experience been? Has there been a friction point with that? That's maybe bothers you isn't the right word, but just that you've noticed. If yes, what is it and why? Do you see anything within that contributor guide, that you'd want to see updated, and so forth? And do we think a survey to the crowd would be kind of helpful with this as well? Let me bring the screen back up. And I have not been moderating the chat, so I don't know if there's anyone that's been talking or not. All right. So that's kind of my spiel, my blurb, if you will. And now I'm curious to hear people's thoughts and their comments and so forth. Allow a minute for everything to percolate.
I think codifying the AI policy in a FEP would be a little risky because it's likely the FEP would become obsolete in about a year. So things are changing really rapidly, and
yeah, I'd agree with that.
I will agree with that too, but I'm also trying to hold my tongue and not insert my opinions into this discussion here.
Yeah, I hesitate with the same things. Like I don't know that I have the definitive answer here, but I mean,
Oh yeah, I don't expect anyone to.
yeah, so I'll just voice my opinion. I hope everyone feels free to express themselves too, right? So the I mean, AI is here to stay, and using it for review and analysis like this is a pretty common usage. So we could codify it. It's like you hardly have to ask permission for people to do this anymore, I guess. I mean, it's open source stuff, so it's not like you're feeding the models anything that's, proprietary. The thing with all this AI stuff forever and hopefully continues is that just because you use AI, you still have to own the result, right? Like your comment of, well, it's not making the decision. So yeah, you can use it, but you still have to make sure what it's telling you is correct and all that. So, But that kind of just goes without saying, right? Like that's how you're supposed to properly use it. So, I mean, as a development community, we're in a massive transition period, right? Where this AI is the coding capabilities of it and the analysis capabilities of it are changing workflows like crazy. So for us to say, well, let's be cautious, and I don't know if we're going to use this or not, it's like, well, we're going to drastically fall behind if we are too cautious. But at the same time, just letting people know, hey, this is what we're doing, and just being very open about it is also super useful. That way, people don't feel like, we didn't at least describe what's going on. So I'd say lean in and let people know what you're doing.
I like that. I like that. Does the general crowd agree with this sentiment? This might be the shortest discussion ever. It's totally up to y'all.
Well, I'm interested if there is friction. Like anybody said, I do not want AI looking at my stuff. How dare you? Does anybody feel that way? I mean, that's a legitimate perspective. I don't want to try. I'm not trying to belittle that. I'm interested to hear what people think.
Me too. Absolutely. And I'm also happy to kind of surveyify this, if you will, and send it out to the community for anyone who doesn't want to speak up in this format. Totally understood. I guess, Sean, have you noticed in reviews anyone kind of being, I don't want to say prickly, but just having issues with AI being used? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I mean, one example comes to mind, but otherwise, it's been a non-eventful process, I would say. Especially since generally I don't just come back and say, like, here's the AI review, have a good day.
Yeah, yeah. See, that would piss me off if somebody said, AI says I can't take your thing. It's like, no, Sean has to say it, right? Like it's you're just using AI to get the ideas and help it summarize it. And so then you have to claim it as your ideas. As long as people do that, fine. I mean, if it suggests something weird and if to me and I let it through, that's on me, right? I have to own my mistake, whether I generate it with AI or not.
Mhm.
So as long as that's all still happening, then it's kind of no different.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely just view it as a supplemental tool to
Right.
help get to a decision faster.
There is a chance, I think you had early on, like, what if AI makes it more offensive or more direct and pointed than we would say, well, some idiot left this in here. How dare they do that? Haven't they understood what PyHC is all about? Duh. It's like if that gets through, then uh, then that's where you could actually fall back and say, oops, sorry. I never would have said it that way. I forgot that the AI would do that and I didn't properly review it. I would easily forgive somebody for that. Like, oh yeah, AI does weird stuff. Yeah, you should check that though. It's like, but I'm not going to get upset at somebody for having that sneak in there. Um, it's weird. It's a little bit of a red flag that like you really should review your stuff better. But again, it's like, hey, we're all friends here. It's like we're not trying to we're, we don't have our finger hovered over the smite button. Oh, I hope they,
Yeah.
it's like we, this is a friendly crowd, and we all want the success of this community. So that goes a long way, I think.
Mm.
For sure. Um, Anyone who hasn't spoken up yet, do you have any feelings, thoughts, concerns? All of them are welcome and valid.
Um, when Sean used PySpeed as an example for the evaluation a while back, I thought it was kind of interesting. There's this bias towards positivity and cheerfulness. And when I was reading that report, I was like, the praise was so effusive. It sort of set my teeth on edge a little bit, like, oh, pull the other one, it's got bells on. So
That's
I just
funny.
thought it was interesting. So it's more likely to be like over positive rather than overly critical. I think there's sort of the models are sort of biased that way.
Hmm. I've had one example where the the submitter submitted a package basically with like all good reviews, and then I went and ran back the AI tool, and it actually like disagreed and ended up coming back and marking most of them as like uh, needs improvement or partially met, and then that was one time I think they got a little bit like maybe upset's the wrong word, but pushed back on that and didn't love that I had used an AI tool to kind of like say that their package was worse than their self-evaluation was. But I would agree in general, sycophancy is the default of AI models still rather than like being harsh. So that is hopefully like not a normal case.
Yeah, and I mean, I could understand someone's put a lot of effort and work into something and they don't want to hear that everything's not as good as they're hoping it is. Any other thoughts from the crowd, those who are here? Have you all used any AI, kind of in self-checking your own packages? Kind of curious.
I'll just no, I have not used AI in self-checking BISAT or anything, and I think you guys have mostly covered sort of the feelings, the spectrum of feelings and stuff. I will say that the only time I've really used AI with heliophysics packages is I don't know if any of you are familiar with the GMAT orbit prediction. It's not a Python package, but it's in the sort of heliophysics and space physics um, community, and it has really. I don't want to be rude, but the documentation leaves a lot to be desired. But there's a lot of information in the code, and so AI has been really helpful to basically generate documentation more or less on the fly, sort of like a something that has read all the code and you can ask it questions. Um, and you still have to check that yourself. But in a sea of code that's been written over many years by many different people, it's helpful to get a point in the right direction sometimes. Um, I don't know how relevant that is to the discussion, but that's the sort of the extent of uh, sort of AI reading over code.
Sure, yeah. Thanks for that perspective. So basically, what I'm hearing is kind of what I hoped that we don't want to put this into a FEP. I think that freezes things in time a bit too much for this particular topic, and we'd have to be updating it a lot anyway. Um, but we do want to update those contributor guidelines to mention kind of what we're doing and how we're using it, and that it's not the end all be all decision and so forth. Um, yeah. So I think I'll also kind of put this out into a survey for anyone that wasn't able to be here today, get their thoughts, make sure complete community buy-in, may as well move forward in that sense. But yeah, I got what I needed out of this discussion. I'm curious, since kind of, Sean, you're the one mostly using it in this context. Did you have any thoughts or comments you want to leave with the crowd?
Yeah, I mean, to clarify the outcome here, maybe could you click up one slide into, I think it's slide 6 there. That was, yeah. Um, we're proposing, I think here going with this middle option to basically just update the guidelines document and keep the process right now. Basically, if you want to submit a PyHC package, we'll still ask you to do a self-evaluation and submit your submission with, grading badges, good, needs review, or partially met on the various standards. And then I'll take a mention that once you open a PR with that, then the tech lead will come in with this PyHC standards evaluator, and I'll probably give a link to the GitHub repo for anyone interested. And then then we'll say whether or not I agree or disagree with the self-evaluation. And if it's just total agreement, then there's nothing to do, and we can just merge the pull request if we're accepting it in the PyHC. And if there needs to be discussion, then it happens in the pull request. And are people generally happy with that approach, with that process?
I'm nodding my head as though I'm the one submitting packages. Hearing no huge dissent, I'd assume that means yes, we're good with it. Cool.
I can't interpret silence as anything other than that.
It's fine with me. From the happy group, we submit, ours is in there already, but if it gets reviewed or whatever, and you use the AI for that, of course, we're fine with that.
Yeah.
All the
I mean,
caveats before, you got to own your outputs, but that we already talked about that. So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the
agree.
whole community, we're still getting used to, no one's used to it actually using AI and how much it's affecting us. Sean's been doing this for a long time. A lot of people are still ramping up on it or haven't tried it yet. It's starting to actually get expensive
Mm.
to use. And so uh, it's a brand new world out there to try and get used to doing this. So we're trying to ramp up on it rapidly in our group because I think last fall it really turned a corner with coding capabilities. So, um,
Definitely.
yeah, it's something we all have to pay attention to because scientists will just start using that instead of us for their analysis stuff. And it's definitely slurped in all of our code because it's open source. So it's got that for reference. And, we said it's useful for anything. Now they're using it, but you know, so I think we all have to get familiar with this paradigm and get comfortable with it, even though there's definitely some question marks still, like even about sustainability and environmental, impacts of all these data centers and whatnot. But, that part aside, it's definitely a threat to the research software engineering business model.
May as well lean into it and own it. And yeah, I mean, one big reason I wanted to bring this up and just kind of touch base with the community is I can see this being used to try to speed up the massive undertaking that will be the FET4 restructure and re-tiering with everything. I mean, obviously, it's not only Sean doing all that himself. It's meant to be kind of a team reviewing packages and going forth and sorting things. But I can see this AI review definitely coming in handy for helping us analyze things faster. In any case, yeah, I'm content with how this has gone. I'll put a survey out there for anyone that's not, of the type to speak up in this kind of environment, which is totally fine. I get it. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps up that discussion. Unless there's any remaining thoughts, I'll give it a few seconds. Just turning your camera on mean you have a thought, Nick, or just that you're saying hey?
Saying hey.
Okay, just double check. Cool. All right. Well, the last things that we have for the day is just a reminder that, this is a annual meeting, so we're going to have some FET votes come up. Let's see, we've got a second vote coming up for FEP2, or sorry, FEP4. Let me put that in the chat. No, I don't want to direct message anyone. All right, so that one's the package tiering, the whole restructure thing I was mentioning with putting things in silver, gold, bronze levels. We voted on this once before. I think it might have actually been the last biannual meeting that we had. So it's definitely ready for a second vote at this point. And then we had mentioned a first vote for a few different FEPs, but everyone's super busy right now, and John Niehoff is kind of the spearheading person for all that. And he mainly had time just to actually prepare one of the ones we've been looking at. So that would be FEP 6, and that's the Community and Licensing Standards FEP. So this, again, will be the first vote on that one. John's done a lot of work in the background to try and get this good to go and ready. If you have any thoughts, comments, concerns, now would be the time to go and review it before we vote on that on Thursday, just the end of our meeting day.
Mhm.
Yes, I know.
Julie, if I can ask,
Yeah.
was there any plan to have a kind of like presentation or dedicated time to like go back over what exactly new rules are being introduced in FEP 4?
New rules. I hadn't, but I can.
Hadn't, but you can.
Yeah. Since this was the second vote, it was kind of assumed that people would be a bit familiar with it at this point. But I mean, I can put something together for Thursday before we officially vote, just to remind folks.
Yeah, yeah, I don't want to just suddenly throw new work on top of you to develop that. But I mean, I know I'm definitely going to be going back and rereading it to remind myself all the repercussions. But I think basically once if we vote FEP 4 into existence on Thursday, then we're going to be restructuring basically all of PyHC's packaging. Like we're going to redo the projects page to separate them out into different tables, and they're separated into now. And then there's going to be the whole process of starting to review and then like grade and recategorize our
Mm-hmm.
like roughly 100 packages and all that stuff. So it's just I want to make sure people are aware of what changes will occur.
Sure. And I mean, I will say FEP4 is also dependent on having our standards ready to be used for review. And part of that's linked to these FEPs for the standards. So there will be a little bit of a delay in implementing FEP4 until we can get all that sorted, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So there's a little time. Um, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be anything extensive. I'll put a couple slides together to remind folks of what that looks like. Maybe I'll just send that out before Thursday
Hmm.
happens if I can get that done in time.
Nice. Or even just having like you could even just have the document on screen if you don't want to make slides and just like kind of read it for people for anyone who's not doing the homework in advance.
Sure. Um,
Whatever works.
yeah, let's see. I always forget the best way to look at a markdown file on GitHub. It's not something I have to think about very often.
I think if you
Preview?
hit view file anywhere, like I know if you're in the PR,
Mm-hmm.
you get the changes. There's usually three dots in the top right corner, and then there's
Yeah.
usually a view file.
Haha. Thank you for reminding me. I'll just do that now. Why not? Da, 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 da. Okay, move your faces out of my way. Sorry, nothing against y'all there. All right, so like I mentioned, this is for FEP4, the PyHC package tiering FEP. Um, the abstract is really quite succinct in what it's about, but basically we're putting a new tiering structure to the packages, and that'll automatically affect all of our, package page and project page that Sean mentioned once it does go into effect. Puts things into 3 different tiers, either a gold, silver, or bronze, and also kind of mentions benefits accrued at each tier. I gave a presentation on this, gosh, I don't even know, 2 or so years ago at this point, but the motivating factors behind that is just, there was kind of 2 schools of thought for what PyHC could be: a basic interpretation where we're just a listing of all the open source packages in Helio, and another one where we're kind of a standards based interpretation, and how well are we, matching with our standards and striving to be the best we can be and so forth. And so this SPEP tries to kind of marry those 2 ideas, if you will. So tiering specifications, let's see. So bronze we've been doing our self-evaluation packages, and that's how people have submitted so far to PyHC. So we would ask a bronze level to do that and call that sufficient. Gold and silver, we're going to have a bit more of a defined process for that, where we have a team review things. The standards compliance, instead of kind of listing them all out here, we've said that, we are going to FEPify kind of all of our standards. So basically, packages must comply with all applicable standards in the FEPs as defined in those standards FEPs. A while ago, we were talking about kind of PyHC, PyOpenSci review process. There will be separate FEPs for what that looks like for a gold tier package and a silver tier package, but bronze level packages won't be expected to go through that kind of thing. Benefits at each tier. There's a few different ideas here. There's the idea of our summer school series, and will you be able to present at that or not? So gold obviously would be immediately invited to give a presentation at the summer school. Silver, if space allows, basically, we'd brought you in. And then bronze, if a higher tier package is using a bronze package and wants to kind of have them come in and say something, sure, but they're not going to get a direct invite. There's the PyHC chatbot that Sean has been running, as well as the PyHC environment. And this is kind of a catch-all, higher tier packages are going to be priority for getting resources put to them for these things. Bronze, if there's funding, if there's time on Sean's end and other people's end, cool. Obviously, all the different levels will try to help you with standards compliance assistance, at least giving, a review on what you need to do to reach kind of a higher tier based on whatever your standards grading is, with priority giving to the people who aren't at a gold tier. This conference travel funding was kind of from a little thought process, if you will, of if PyHC leadership had extra funding to be able to provide to people to go to conferences, Dash, Gem, Cedar, Shine, all that kind of thing, priority would go to those who have the gold tier level or silver, next, and then bronze, no. Moving down, as far as the implementation process goes, because this is kind of the big undertaking of all that. Basically, within 6 months of this being adopted, with the asterisks of the standards FEPs also being put into place, we would expect packages to submit a PR to the PyHC website GitHub, indicating, what level they think their package is and giving, the justification for that. And then within 3 months of a package submitting their PR, we would have a technical steering committee review the package and basically assert, is the self-evaluated tier matching expectations? If not, basically there'll be some back and forth with the person that submitted the review. This technical steering committee would include myself and Sean, as well as a few members of PyHC, basically not involved with the package being submitted, just to remove self-interests there, with a minimum of 4 members and up to 6 members possible on that committee reviewing things. Some general comments on that process. If you don't submit your own self-evaluated tier, we're going to assign one for you. You're always welcome to come back later and then say, hey, sorry, I had no time that year to think about this, but I don't agree and I want to resubmit something. You're free to do that, of course. Packages also are allowed to move between tiers. If you improve some standards in certain areas and you think I need to go up a tier now, you can also, resubmit and ask for that. And the flip side of that is also true. So if a package is defunct or, drops in status, you might get downgraded if it's a big enough jump that the technical steering committee thinks that needs to happen. In that case, if a package is flagged for downgrade, following occurs. Basically, you get half a year notice before that happens, and you do have the opportunity to rectify the issues within that half-year notice of the downgrade happening. Those are kind of the big ideas in FEP4. The rest is kind of the official process that we just require on FEPs, how we'll teach it, things like this, talking at the biannual meeting and so forth. Yeah, those are the big ideas. Any questions or thoughts? Hopefully this is mostly just a review for everyone here. We did vote on this once already, so the second vote will just be codifying this and making it official.
I was trying to be quiet for a sec, but I'll jump in with just one question. I don't know if you would have an answer to this yet, but
Mhm.
I've been questioning in my mind, what are we going to do with like gold tier packages, and how is it going to compare to how we've been treating like core packages in the past? Because like, for example, core like in the PyHC summer school, core
Mm.
packages are the main ones we teach, and at meetings like this, it's the core packages that we mainly hear updates from. So are we going to
Right.
want to shift that to include like all gold packages, or might it depend on how many packages end up being in the gold tier? I don't know. Have you thought much about that?
A marriage between those two thoughts, basically. So I would imagine the gold tier packages kind of basically get what the core package treatment is right now, for all intents and purposes. Reading between the lines, that's basically what the gold tier is. I can imagine that at least at first, not all of our core packages necessarily will fall into the gold tier, which is fine and expected. In which case, obviously, we'd be reaching out to silver tier packages still to present at our meetings. I also think we've never completely restricted our biannual meetings, for example, to only be like the core packages presenting, but it's been the expected tier, if you will, to come up and talk about what's happened. So
Yeah.
in my mind, it would be a similar thought process. The gold and probably silver levels would be expected to come with some kind of update, and other packages, if they're newer, if they want to say, hey, we're doing new things and we want you to know about it, would still be free to come on and chat.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's my initial thought dump, but obviously we can refine that further with time.
Hmm.
Cool. All right. Well, in the meantime, again, as a reminder, we'll vote on this on Thursday. Second vote for the one I just gave a whole spiel about. First vote for FEP 6, the licensing and community standards tiers. So please go take a look at that. It is a bit shorter and less dense than the FEP 4 write up. Cool. Thanks, everyone, and see you tomorrow. We're going to be talking more about the HSSI. We're really looking for feedback from people, so please come and come with your thoughts and opinions.